But the problem is, they're not sending you to Mars.
Oh,
You think that you're in line to be sent to Mars?
Oh, especially me. The working class is going to Mars first.
Yeah, right.
Who's going to build the White House there? The new slaves.
Not a.
Well, I think it's great that hot dogs have a national holiday. It's about time that America finally acknowledges the many hot dogs that fought in World War II.
That's true.
But here's what I think about hot dogs, fellas. We gotta stop saying no homo before we take a bite.
I try to stop, but I just can't.
A guy on the $20 bill right now.
Andrew Jackson?
Yeah, the one Jackson that didn't make it into the group.
Yeah.
Remember a couple years ago they were saying that they were going to, ease him out and then bring in Harriet Tubman. Well, that's been delayed until 2028.
Well, the Treasury Secretary was saying that his priority is putting more security into the dollar bill.
Yes, because of course the first black person on currency needs more security.
Incredible.
We want to make sure Harriet Tubman isn't stealing the money she's on.
Right.
All right. I got a special guest joining us here, Tim Barnes. How's it going, man? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Of course, it is no problem at all. So I'm not sure if you got a chance to check the show out, but one of the first things I always like to ask my guests on the show is just how is your mental space? How are you? How is your family doing in the time of COVID? Right now it's a rough time to be dealing with, especially trying to perform and doing things like stand-up comedy in itself, period. It's got to be a little more difficult to be in front of an audience. So how are you doing in this time specifically?
I have a hard time complaining about I really lucked out on a number of things during this time, and I try to stay very humble about it. For me personally, doing relatively well in these times, but it is tough for a lot of people, and just trying to stay focused and take care of as many people as I can, and now my voice is getting higher, and but yeah, I mean, it's also been just a whirlwind of complicated emotions, and trying to navigate everything in my life taking place in the same space, the same apartment, same 5-block radius. So
totally understood. Yeah, man. Have you found it harder to perform in a live setting? Has there been any restrictions as far as that goes for you guys, especially because you you live in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, I live in Brooklyn, and I do stand up, and I write for the Tonight Show right now, but I have personally no interest in doing stand up in these times. It all kind of freaks me out, and luckily. And I was very lucky that because I started this job in the pandemic, and it's just amazing that people have figured out how to make writers' rooms work on Zoom and stuff. But yeah, both of those things I miss. I miss being able to just perform live in front of people. I miss being able to be in a room with other writers. Because that's really kind of where I shine as writing comedy is very collaborative, and I really enjoy that. And it's harder to do that when you're in a room where it's just a bunch of people on Zoom staring forward at your face, whatever, on mute.
I can imagine right now. It seems like this might be a little bit of the norm moving forward, just being on Zoom and less human interaction. I can't even imagine the space in the next couple of years if we don't figure this out, how it's going to look. We might lose how to interact with people.
We will, yeah. I'm getting that's the thing. Stand up is all about noise, and there's so much silence in these Zoom rooms because just to be polite you have to stay muted. That's why I was always I dabbled in storytelling a little bit, and it was tough because a lot of storytelling compared to stand-up is all in the silences, and kind of controlling and navigating that. But it's hard to get that confidence that people are enjoying it, because with stand-up you want people to laugh every 5 or 10 seconds.
True.
But I think that's probably one of the eeriest things about this time is that people are probably getting used to this different sort of cadence of communication, getting used to silences, getting like, for me, it's like, it's so overwhelming. I don't turn my camera on a lot of times. So, getting used to that power, just being able to, like, imagine if you just shut off your face in everyday life,
Yeah, I never thought about it like that, but yes, that's a comedy way to look at it for sure. Like, yeah, I definitely understand that. I do have a question for you. So, a Los Angeles born, right? You were born in Los Angeles, raised in the Brooklyn space. How was that transition as far as so how old were you when you first, like, when you moved from Los Angeles to Brooklyn? How old were you? I do want to.
Oh no, I grew up in LA, and we moved from South Central LA to another part of California called the Inland Empire, where like Riverside and stuff like that is.
Yeah, I heard of it.
And and so I have a very sort of winding journey. And then in 2012, which I think I was maybe 22 at the time, me and a friend of mine I went to high school with, we both ended up doing stand-up and comedy. We moved to Chicago together. And then in 2016, I moved from Chicago to New York. So
okay,
yeah.
So you were doing stand up while you were in California still?
A little bit. That's when I first started just kind of dabbling with it. I would say, like, my first real passion was to be a filmmaker, and so I remember I ended up going to Santa Barbara City College because they had a good film program, and a couple years into that, I kind of just gave up on college for for a number of reasons, and moved back with my parents in Riverside for like a year. Was working at a movie theater, and a couple of friends of mine, they were in a band, and they knew, like, I knew that I wanted to start doing comedy a little. I just didn't know how it worked, but I was one of those people who just kind of, if a joke worked in conversation with one person, next time I'm like at a house party or talking to someone at work, I try and like sneak in the joke again to see if it works. So like some jokes I still do today was like, because it always used to frustrate me, the question of where you're from, because it feels like a very loaded question when you're asking a Black person that. I always feel like people are trying to get,
thought about it like that,
but it's also like, where are you from is a very existential question to an African American person, because like you're like, where am I from? Like, I don't like there's like a core to it that you don't, generally, but you don't, the lack of specifics is kind of daunting. And I kind of feel like that with my whole life. Like there's a lack of specifics. But so to answer that, I would say I'm from a small town in African America, and it's one of those things where it's like a little delay because it kind of sounds like, oh, and then you're like processing it, like that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And so I would repeat that over and over again. And that was kind of, so anyway, these friends who had a band, they were going to do a show in LA, and they asked me to open for them. And so if I'm remembering correctly, in preparation of that, I started going to open mics for the first time. And I did the show. It went well enough, and I kind of kept doing it, but I didn't make a big announcement to friends and family or anything. I just kind of went out and started doing it.
Okay, I like that, man, for sure. So I mean, I'm a huge movie guy, man. I've seen all different kind of movies, and anytime I think of the West Coast movie, I think of like Menace to Society, one of those kind of movies, man. How was your experience growing up in California?
See, that's a part of like, and those are all classic movies. Yeah, I was a pretty sheltered kid. Like I grew up in the same neighborhood that my dad grew up in, and I was born in 89. So the era that I grew up in was a complicated time for, and I wasn't like allowed to go around the block, and but it's not like I was clamoring to go around the block either. Like I was totally fine being at home. So I've always been sort of just an indoor kid, stuck with my imagination. Which I think is, part of why, got into film and comedy and kind of just exploring these weird angles of creating art, I guess.
Yeah, listen, I can totally understand. I mean, just the transition from the East Coast to the West Coast for you, I feel like you're almost like the opposite of Tupac. You know what I mean? Like your representations. That's pretty cool, man.
Well, see, that's my problem is I don't know how to answer. Like most of the questions people ask, it's like, what transition? I'm still not going outside, like it's
Yeah,
just a
right
different
now,
version of indoors. Like
definitely.
anywhere I go, I'm not, there is nothing. Maybe I missed the sun a little bit on the East Coast, but there's nothing really to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, listen, I get it. I get it. So how was that transition as far as just a comedy lane from like doing comedy in the West Coast to doing comedy in the East Coast? How was that transition? Was it like a harder crowd to be able to get comfortable in? Like, was the West Coast harder to perform or the East Coast? How was that as far as the transition?
Yeah, so I didn't do too much. Like even when I started doing it in California, it was like, I'm in this like sort of desert area of California, like couple hours away from Los Angeles. So I wasn't really in the, like the LA comedy scene.
Gotcha.
And I was just kind of starting for me, and the open mics I were going to weren't really comedy mics. They were just like poetry mics or music mics or stuff like that. And I really count Chicago as the place that I really started to focus on stand up. And what's great about Chicago compared to LA, compared to New York even, is that there's not, people often say there's not a lot of, like, one of the perks is that there's not this as big of a media presence as there is on either coast. So like in New York, there's media and there's like comedy writing jobs.
Yep.
Same in LA. Not so much in Chicago. It's like, the rare, very rare sort of big entertainment thing on the comedy lane in Chicago. So there's really just a great sense of community with the comedians there.
Nice.
And a great sense of camaraderie. And there's tons of friction, but because that's natural.
Yep.
But there's like this feeling of like a natural sort of hierarchy that occurs, and this sort of feeling of a graduating class every couple of years.
I got you.
So it was the best place for me to start, and it's a bunch of different neighborhoods that are hyper specific, and it is one of the, if not the most racially segregated cities in the US. And so that plays into the comedy scene there. Like there's a difference between South Side comedy and North Side comedy. And so, me being new there and trying to figure out how to navigate both. And a lot of it was also trying to figure out like, what's my lane? What kind of comedian am I? What kind of Black comedian am I? What kind of, how do I entertain all these different kinds of rooms and still be myself? So I think I figured a lot out while I was there.
Man, that's incredible, man. And you have some of the legendary comedians like Bernie Mac. I believe he's from Chicago as well. So I'm saying, so you've seen some murals of him out there and conversations about him out there and all of this sort, man. There's a lot of legendary comedians that come from that area, man. Was that was that experience a little nerve-wracking for you going in there? Like, man, these legends were here in private fund here, and I gotta match up to that energy.
No, I think for me at least, I learned to just like focus on me specifically and not think about. And this is like, it's crazy to think about how much has changed in just like the last 5 years. But it's almost this feeling of there's no such thing as the mainstream anymore, and that I've been feeling the ripple effects of that even when it comes to comedy. So there's no the pressure to reach the status of someone like a Bernie Mac or a Richard Pryor. It's still, you want to reach that, but there's so many different avenues. There's so many different specific types of performers that people glom onto that some of those big things that could give you anxiety as a comedian.
Yeah.
I don't feel as much of that, but it's true. It's like so many great comedians come out of Chicago, from Bernie Mac to Hannibal Buress to Lil Rel Howery, and and I always feel like when I'm on podcasts, I turn it into therapy, but
it's all good, man. That's what we're here for, man. I enjoy the conversation, so go ahead, man.
This sort of the question of where I'm from, like I don't know if I've, deserve being described as a Chicago comedian, So that's the kind of thing where it's like, I was there for about 5 years, and the Chicago comedy scene really like made me who I am. But it's like, when am I? Am I a Chicago? Am I an LA comedian? A Chicago comedian? Some of these labels, it's hard for me to figure out where I sit in them.
Man, I would say if I was you, and anybody asks, I would say I'm a universal comedian. I'm in all over the place, man. I touch down in every single place possible, and I'm universal, man. Don't put a title on me,
Yeah.
I do have a question for you. Out of all the things you could pick, why comedy? Why do you feel like you touched on to wanting to be a comedian and get into comedy?
I think it is just the core of who I am, and it's hard, everything I do has an element of comedy in it, and I think it stems from the fact that I ask a lot of questions, and a lot of them are the big questions, and the big questions are so scary that they're kind of funny. So that's like, how do things just exist? Pretty trippy stuff to think about, and it's like, man, when you get to that point, and that's one of my favorite points to think about. Like, everything, even the darkest stuff, is it's all comedy, because it's all absurd. Yeah. And so I don't know. It just kind of it's just the way I see things. It exudes through everything that I do. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not mad at that, man. That's a good answer. Like I feel like they say that most people that do comedy have like a darker way of looking at things, or you know what I mean, a darker thought when it comes to certain kind of things. Do you feel like, I mean, just from you making that statement, I feel like you kind of feel like that as well. Like, I do have that darker side to me. That's kind of why I wanted to join the comedy side.
Yeah, and I think a lot of comedy is like, if you really think about comedy, they're really sort of these. A joke is really, a lawyer trying to make a point, and my disposition in life is like, why is no one asking the question that's right there? Like, every room you're in, there's just like a big glaring, elephant in the room that people avoid in their everyday life because of society, because of social, norms, because of culture, because of what you were raised to believe, all this stuff. And so it's maybe it's because I'm a pretty mostly quiet, laid back person. It's like the one opportunity to kind of try to make a point. And sometimes it feels like, getting the laughter from an audience is like a form of acceptance of like, oh, so you get what I said,
Yeah. That's pretty neat, man. I like that concept as far as that goes, man. Would you say that you find like more success in like the stand-up portion, or like performing behind the scenes? And which do you actually prefer to do out of both of those? Prefer to be behind the scenes, or you prefer to be doing stand-up?
That's a good question. That's a tough question to answer. I think it's sort of a tug and pull of both. Like, if I had a yin and yang chain, the one side would represent behind the scenes, and the other side would represent being in front of the camera or on stage. They both kind of feed into each other. Yeah, it's hard to answer.
I tell people, man. I usually tell people, man, I'm always gonna give somebody a question that they say, that's a really good one. A really good one. Okay.
Especially at this point with the way things are, right? I think I've reached the point where it's like I'm itching to get on stage again. But it's making me hone in on my writing skills, trying to figure out how to be more specific with my voice, with even when it comes down to the jokes that I tweet, or little quick sketches that I think of. I think ideally there's some sort of a fusion of both. I don't. It's so hard to answer. I think that I can't say either or.
I totally understood. Yeah, man, for sure. I mean, I feel like there's a different, probably a different energy and a different happiness you probably get from both of them, only because when you performing it for yourself, you could do it exactly how you want to. But when you're writing it, it may not hit exactly how you want it to hit. So you got to make sure that person understands your exact view and can and can match exactly how you feel in that moment. Or do you feel like you're one of the comedians that are kind of more sensitive about your work? Like, I need you to do it exactly how I tell you to do it. Or you more laying back, like, you know what? If you don't get it exactly, we can work it out, kind of sort of thing. How do you feel like you are when it comes to your material? Just writing for somebody.
Writing for someone else. I think I'm a little more laid back, and I, I'm interested in seeing how people, what direction people take it. And I think even with, my energy is so different from on stage, from show to show. And similar to, me trying to get more specific and hone in on my, behind the scenes stuff, writing and things like that. I do want to kind of hone in on that on stage as well. But there is something about, there's a phase of just putting, the bare bones version of it out and seeing how people interpret it. Mm-hmm. Like Chris Rock, for instance, often when he's working on material that will end up being in a special or something, or that he'll end up taking on the road, he famously, like when he's working at the Cellar or something like that, he's not the Chris Rock that you think of. He's not pacing the stage. He's not putting a lot of emphasis in every, last word. He's not repeating the stuff over and over again. He just kind of says it very low key, just to see if the joke on its own has some sort of legs and some sort of resonance, or just to see if there's something there. And so in that way, like, I try not to be often like too rigid about stuff that I write for other people. Like I try to, keep things bare bones to see if anything inspires them, if there's anything that jumps out. And I truly enjoy the collaborative part of that kind of stuff.
That's pretty neat, man. That's pretty cool. I like that, man. How long have you been in the quote unquote collaborative space, like just writing and sharing material and that portion? How long have you been in that space for?
In some ways, I've kind of always been in that space. Like, even outside of just doing my own stand-up, I was always working on stuff with my friend Ian Abramson, who I moved to Chicago with and have known since high school. Like, we were always working on stuff, and but it is like a little bit of both. Like, I was never good at improv. I was never like that. That's like a level of collaboration that is a little difficult for me, because it's kind of hard to not want to control things when things kind of get off the rails in that way. Okay. It's hard to let go in that way, I found. And often it was like, I felt like I couldn't be what the scene needed. Like, I have a very specific sort of register, very specific sort of, I'm not like a wild, can't do a lot of characters.
No.
So.
No voice redos, nothing like that.
No, I can't. And I wish.
That's a talent in itself.
I know people who can do characters on stage. People could embody, different physicalities and stuff. I'm always jealous of that. It's like I'm a very sort of setup, punchline, monotone, kind of boring style of comedy.
Listen, man, I feel like there's a space for everybody, because there's so many different personalities.
Yeah,
there's so many different people that like different things. There's always going to be a space for any kind of comedy. Who would you say is in your like your Mount Rushmore, or even like your top 5 as far as like comedians that you may have like looked at growing up, or you may have found some inspiration from?
The big ones. The big one for me actually is George Carlin.
Okay.
Because he was meticulously funny. He was funny on paper and funny on stage, and often the stuff that was funny on paper was exactly the thing that he was saying on stage. And I think I first got into him because he had this book of comedic, comedic essays or whatever, called "When Will Jesus Bring the Pork Chops?" And it's just like, someone like me who grew up, religious, and and it was so funny and oddly challenging. And it felt like this wasn't, George Carlin kind of later got into this sort of bitter, more intense form of comedy, but this was kind of like in that middle ground. Gotcha. And it was just kind of poking at these questions that I've had since I was a kid, these big questions about, why do we, that kind of stuff. Why do we, why are we not questioning, question and then get settled into it? But I felt like I was bumping into a lot of, resistance to just like, I kind of enjoy questioning everything. And so that was super funny. And then later, like when I started watching some of his specials, like, oh, he's literally saying what he wrote down in this book. And it's even funnier. He's just like, he has it down to a science. He's like a mathematician when it comes to putting a set of words together. The second that for like in the order of, of me getting into comics, I think definitely Richard Pryor. Specifically, I mean, broadly, just because of his just like massive importance across all the scales. But before I started going to open mics, I remember I just wanted to see what it might look like for me to be on stage, and so I was just, looking. Yeah. So I was like, oh, I kind of look like him a little bit. I don't look exactly like Richard Pryor, but I had an afro, and so it was literally like I got into him because it was like that was the closest approximation to me seeing myself on stage. And I was like, look, he does that with his face, or And I remember I was watching this one where it was a little more low key. It was him at the Comedy Store, and he's just kind of walks up to the mic and he stands still the whole time. And that was like my first clue of like, yeah, that seems a little more like what I would want to do.
Right.
Another comic. Do you know who Ron Funches is?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I don't believe.
Yeah, you should look him up. I'm gonna look him up. Yeah. Well, I guess another person before him would be Stephen Wright. Okay. Stephen Wright, if you're not familiar with him, he's like this tall. I think he's from Boston. Strange looking guy, kind of wild hair. Okay. He kind of talks with a slow, deliberate voice, and he just does one-liners, and they're absurd and they're weird, and they kind of poke at that odd part of your brain. Mm-hmm. And if you ever watch one of his specials, it's really freaky because he's just standing still, talking in the exact same cadence for almost every joke. And people are going crazy. It's like you kind of can't do comedy like that anymore. Yeah, because it's a lot of that style. Like you look at it now. Sometimes it's like, oh, it's just a string of tweets, But
I never even thought. Okay, I like that. Yeah, for sure, a string of tweets.
But Ron Funches. I remember the first time I saw him. That was back in that year when I was had moved back with my parents. And that was when Conan had left NBC and started his late night show at TBS. And then this comedian comes out, and he was bigger then, and he had this cadence that you wouldn't expect, kind of like a sort of high pitched voice, and he was just weird, and he's a black comedian, and I was like. It sounds kind of crazy now because there's so many, it's not weird to be an out there sort of black comic, but even like then it like stood out enough where I was like, okay, there is something here that is attainable. So those are the ones that kind of immediately pop out. It's of course, like Bill Cosby and people like that. But it's really just like a big combination of stuff.
Man, that's interesting. I like how you break down the science of comedy as well, like the cadence, using one words, like you said, like the tweet style. That's pretty interesting. How you look at how you like specifically look at comedy in itself, man. You feel like that's something that you learned to find out over time, or did you feel like you feel like you originally had that thought, like, oh, he has this style of comedy, he has this style, and that's something that you feel like you looked at it originally, or something you learned over time?
I think it's a bit of something that I learned over time. And sorry, I'm gonna drink my water. Like
Go
this
ahead,
is
man. Enjoy it, man. Enjoy the water, man.
this feels like one of those Senate hearings, you know, or it feels like there's some meeting at the point where they take their sip of water,
Right?
so they can think about the most political way to answer it.
Oh man.
Yeah, I think that was always, more so as I started doing more stand up, I started thinking about the science of it more. But it's very similar to music, and it's very verbal. I think it's very similar to rap in a lot of ways too. And I think especially as a pretty quiet person for most of my life, I've just always been sort of a watcher, and something about language just really fascinates me. Like my favorite movies are just like heavy on dialogue, like things like 12 Angry Men, movies like Network, political. I love political dramas. There's something just intriguing about how a conversation starts off with these basic things like hello. Like even when you learn a new language, it's just something funny about the fact that you kind of have to do this song and dance before you really get into like the flow of a conversation with the person.
Gotcha. Yeah.
There's something weird about language. And so being able to, the fact that you can say a series of words with a series of tonalities, and it can make a group of people emit a sound out of their mouth. It can make people feel something like the fact, I don't know, it's just insane. It's kind of crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And you can think about it with like preachers and stuff across different religions. There's a cadence to giving a sermon. There's a cadence to inspiring people. There's a cadence to being a dictator. There's a cadence to scaring people. There's a tone when you say certain words. It can offend people, can frighten people, can make people feel like they're in trouble. So all this stuff. I forget how I got here, but it's
no. I was just asking how you figure that out as far as like the tone and the cadence and the science behind comedy. That's pretty neat, man. I know for myself, my favorite movie style is like death and destruction. Anything you got in the movie that has death and destruction in the previews, I'm going to check it out, man.
Yeah.
Conjuring, all those kinds.
Yeah,
of
for me, it's like
gangster movies. I love them all.
Yeah,
man. Godfather 1 through.
But yeah, gangster movies too, like Godfather. Like it's a lot of language. It's a lot of body language. It's
true.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think a part of that is why I got into comedy, and then also kind of what I, analyzed about different comedians' styles. Like one of the biggest things that that I kind of learned was sort of, and my style is very conversational too. That's part of it. It doesn't often sound like a setup punchline.
It's more like you talking to the crowd, like you tell them a story.
Yeah, exactly. And so people don't realize it's a lot of, I love getting like a constant delay of laughter, of people laughing at something that they just processed from a few jokes before, but then the next joke is still coming.
Yeah.
But then I think I might have seen, maybe Ron Funches did a version of this, but it's, I'm not the first person to do it, but there's like a power to saying something like, before I get started. You already started, but you're saying, oh, before I get started. So like everything I just said, everything I'm saying is not me getting started. Yeah. It's things like that. It's
okay.
You're kind of just like messing with expectations, and maybe laughter comes from people expecting a certain word to come there, and you say something else. It's all I don't know. That's all.
I totally get it, man. I went to I think last year I went to see Kevin Hart And I'm not gonna lie, man, the funniest person to me on that stage was Naeem Lynn. I don't know why, his style and what he does and how funny he is, and the different things he was bringing as far as material was so unique and out there. I'm like, man, he was incredible. I'm not sure if you got to see him do any bit of material, but he's
nice.
He's one of the funniest ones I've seen so far, man. Naeem Lynn he does his thing, man, for sure. I wanted to touch on something else. I know that you let me know a bit about your web comic series, Uncertain Life. How did that come about? Talk about that a little bit.
That really started in the pandemic and me realizing like, oh, I'm not going to be able to go on stage, and I want to be able to create stuff, and maybe, the thesis statement of like everything is so strange right now. So much of life feels uncertain, and I always wanted to do stuff in an animated space, and it seems like a way to make things that are visually weird that are a little more cost effective. And so this great animator that I worked with back when I worked at Comedy Central, he had just been reaching out to me every now and then saying that he'd love to collaborate on stuff. And I was like, a cartoon feels a little lofty, especially because I'm, working at the Tonight Show and stuff. But maybe I've always wanted to dabble in making some sort of comic book or comic strip, and so maybe we could do something like that. And it's been a fun experiment. And it's kind of, the comic is kind of whatever comes to mind. I'm kind of dabble with different styles a little bit. But all of it is mostly sort of just a guy similar to me navigating a surreal world.
That's pretty cool, man. Is there any like specific story behind it as far as like the comedy series in itself, how it goes about, or it's kind of just random thoughts on different pages? How does that work?
There is no storyline. But I think this is just sort of an experiment in me trying to hone in on my comedic voice and figure out, kind of trying to figure out why do I think certain things are funny.
Okay.
Because some people look at them and they're like, this is making me sad or something, And I'm so
sadness, so there's humor in that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I write them, and then my friend draws them, and I give him a couple notes. But then I'm also like fascinated, kind of like what you were saying earlier, of like, do I try to micromanage too much with the things that I create? And I kind of don't. I kind of am like, oh, it's interesting to see that that's how you interpreted that, so it all kind of fascinates me. I would love for your listeners to check it out and let me know if you like it. Let me know if you hate it.
I saw a couple of them on your Instagram that you posted up there, and man, I like it.
Awesome.
I like your style. I like how you present the comedy for sure. That's why I was like, I gotta have him as a guest on the show, man.
Oh wow, is that how you like? How did you hear about me? Like,
so I was looking at where was I at, man? I was on. I might have been looking at Naeem Lynn was on like Comedy Central.
Okay.
I think I plugged in, and you were one of the people that came up on it, and I just happened to click on a couple of people and you as well, and I was man, I gotta ask him to be a guest on my show, man. His comedy is like, it got like a dark twist to it, man. It's my sense of humor, man. I like it.
Awesome.
So I gotta have him as a guest on the show, man. And I reached out, and I was so glad that you were willing to give me the opportunity to sit down with you, man. I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And then I seen all that clip, and I was like, man. And I said, the first thing I thought to myself, I didn't even know all that was still airing on television. And I happened to see you as a guest on the show, man. How did that opportunity with all that come about?
That was surreal. That was I got to write on it. So I was writing at Comedy Central digital, so like writing sketches that go on their YouTube channel and stuff like that. And I was every step of like every job I got, especially in New York, was me trying to get closer to writing for television. And eventually, I want to get to a point where I'm kind of writing my own stuff. And that's part of like what I'm saying too. Like I'm trying to figure out what my deal is and what I'm trying to trying to see if and it's good to know that, the comic clicks with you and stuff like that. Like trying to figure out, do people, what is my audience even? Like, I don't even know. I heard that all that was back already, and I was excited about that. I knew people who were writing for it, like this comedian named Will Miles. I don't know if you would love him. He's great. You should have him on your show.
I'll check him out for sure.
Yeah, he's a Chicago guy. I think he lives in LA now. I think he writes for Grownish, but he was writing for all that. And so I heard that, they were looking to add some more writers for the second half of their first season, and just did a phone interview, and didn't expect anything of it because I had written so many packets for different shows over the years, but something did feel a little right about it. And then, all that, the original version in the 90s, really did have a big influence on everything that I find funny. Like, and you just think it was kind of, I've always theorized that Barack Obama wouldn't be president if it wasn't for 90s Nickelodeon, because 90s Nickelodeon kind of presented this racial utopia that, sometimes it wasn't like a McDonald's commercial. McDonald's commercials, or I guess now you see a lot of McDonald's commercials where it's a bunch of black people, but like there was a time where it was just like, one black person, one person who's a little racially ambiguous, and like commercials in general, and that would be how you show that there's racial equality. But something about 90s Nickelodeon was just like so black. Like you think about the fact that Coolio did the theme song for Kenan and Kel, or like it was it like kind of just depicted this and everything was just like weird and kind of like manic. There's like this manic energy to a lot of all that sketches and stuff.
I mean, all that at the time was so incredible. It broke off so many different things. You had Good Burger come from that.
Yeah.
Man, the Seals had a great career from that. Like you had just so many Kenan and Kel show from that. Just so many different things that just broke off from all that in itself. Like shoot, Nick Cannon being one of the biggest, probably people on that show at one point in time as well. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it brought about a good energy. I hope in the future you see some of those younger people that are on the show break off and do their own thing as well and go into that. So that's pretty interesting, man. Yeah, a phone interview. How does that even work? What about that?
Apparently that was that's so rare. Yeah. It was
like
they had seen they had seen some of the stuff that I had written that's been made before, and just kept it. And trust me, it's like a big deal that I learned how to be good at interviewing. I used to be very bad at interviewing for jobs. People would say, "So tell me about yourself," and I'd start at the beginning. I was born in 1989, and
my mom and dad are. That's too funny.
I take things too literally sometimes, but it really was, just somehow went well. And the head writers for the time that I was there were these guys, Kevin and Heath, who wrote on the original All That. They wrote, they created Good Burger. They wrote the Good Burger movie. They created Kenan and Kel. They wrote every episode of Kenan and Kel. Two white guys, most influential people, white men in Black history, maybe
probably, man.
Yeah.
Besides whoever made the do-rags, I'm sure it's like the two top, and whoever made Hennessy, the top three right there.
And it was so funny because I remember I saw Good Burger as a kid at the Magic Johnson Theater.
Wow.
Like, and it has always stayed with me, the part when they're in the asylum and there's George Clinton there, and they're all just they're all just jamming out to Parliament. And so I got to be in the room with them. I was like, how did that happen? And they'd be like, oh yeah, how did that happen? Someone just told us that George Clinton would want to be in it, and so we just, everything's so casual to them. But these are like big, like, how did this stuff come up? So I learned a lot from them, and it was one of the first experiences I've had of, like, I think my comedic voice really clicking somewhere. Like a lot of other experiences, and it's not bad. This is just the way, you know, things work. It's like a lot of me trying to explain why I'm taking this weird angle for this thing that I'm pitching, you know. But this was like one situation where the weird angle was like the rule and not the exception. And just writing comedy for kids, you'd think that it would be really limiting, but it's actually very open and it's very broad, and it's kind of at the basics of what makes comedy tick. Like, it's not too different from from slapstick. It's not too different from Charlie Chaplin. It's funny situations, people getting hurt, slime falling, you know.
Yeah.
But
All in good fun though.
all in good fun, and there's real logic in it, and the things that might feel restricting make you find really creative ways to it gave me like a big amount of respect for, you know, quote unquote family content, you know.
What would be one of the or what would be the biggest thing that you think you walked away from, like as far as that experience goes? What would be like the biggest thing you think you learned from that experience of all that?
It was a great example of sort of like a model of you know, how to have a good fun you know, comedy room with other writers and developing stuff, and there's so many things about it that like that cast is amazing. These kids are so funny. They're you know, they're going to school at the studio.
Oh, wow.
And they have all their lines. They're like funnier than me. Like it's crazy. And I think I realized they're like born the year I graduated high school. You know, like it's crazy.
Old, huh?
Yeah. Like
I had no idea.
time flies. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Sure, yeah.
But a part of it too, like I think I got to be in a couple of sketches, and those kind of opened my eyes the most of what I think maybe my brand as a comedian is. Because often in the room, you're after you write a sketch, or there's a point where you kind of read over it with the other writers and people kind of jump in to play different characters. And I often back away from that because I'm not the most animated person in the world, and I can't often bring the energy that's needed for the jokes in the room. But then this one sketch that this writer Liz McGee wrote, and there was this character that was just called Boring Person, and I was like, yeah, I'll step in and read that one in the room. And something about it really made everybody laugh. And then I got to you know, they suggested that I that I play the part, and so I got to do it. And I was like,
that's what I seen.
Yeah, there's something about that. And it is just, you know, maybe my whole thing is being boring, you know. And you know, maybe that's the key to everything. I am the boring black comedian, which isn't, you know, isn't what you know, isn't necessarily what black audiences want from a comedian. Not necessarily what white audiences want from a comedian. But I think there's a lot of boring black people in the world who can, yeah. They're not speaking up, obviously. But I would like to represent them, you know. So that's
you did well on the episode, man. You did really well, man.
Oh, thank you,
So
thank you.
I was like, man, that was really good stuff, man. You made the boring people proud, man. I must say. So how is your experience working on the Tonight Show? I feel like right now in this era, you hear all these horror stories right now about comedy talk shows, especially like Ellen and for instance, like, man, how was that experience for you, man? How
for me, it's I don't even know. Like, I feel like I'm not really getting the experience proper because it's all been in my apartment. Like,
I see what you're saying.
I've been on the Tonight Show, and I was on the Tonight Show in my apartment, so everything feels surreal. Feels like it's not really happening. I'll be in meetings, and I was like, yeah, like, is this meeting even really happening? Or like, who are these people? Who is this person on my computer screen telling me what to do? Like, it's all so weird.
Yeah.
So I, I don't really know how to answer it, but most of it is just like, well, I make money every week somehow by
Listen,
staring at, like, writing stuff on a computer that gets made in a studio.
man, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And listen, as long as you're getting a check, man, that's the best part about it, man. That's how I be looking at it. Don't ask me anything else, man. Just know I got the check. And I have my name on it.
Yeah, call me. Ask me about it after the next job. When I'm on the next thing, then I'll tell you.
Then we can tell you for sure. That's too funny. Have you had a chance to sit out in the room? Have y'all even sat in the same room together?
We've never sat in the same room because I think I was still in LA at all that when I talked to him. I think I had like a FaceTime interview. It was good. It was good as a FaceTime interview could be. I found out there's like emojis on FaceTime. I was putting weird things on my face, and it was fine.
That's funny. Is he like he is on TV, or is he a little bit different? Just speaking to him on that FaceTime moment.
He really I left that being like, wow, he is very charming. Like and maybe it's just like a talk show skill or something, but I left that being like, I would actually, it would be funny to hang out with him, like there's some, and celebrities that I've never met, but I think if I found out that this celebrity wanted to grab lunch, I'd think about it. Like I wouldn't I wouldn't necessarily say yes. I'd be like, let me think about it, and then But and then when someone it's in that category of like, yes, and sometimes it's just because like I want to see what that's like, But and my experiences with him have been so limited. Like I have not been in a physical space with him, so I don't really know how to answer that.
You got to set lunch up, man. You got to be like, listen, man, I got lunch in my apartment. Just come by and swing by. You know what I mean? I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, let's see if I can get something on the schedule for 3 years from now, just to be safe.
Sound like a plan, man. My goal later on in life is actually to get like a late night talk show, like
awesome,
Call or something like that, man.
Nice.
I want to do, man.
Yeah,
I tell everybody I'm the modern day Arsenio, man. That's my goal. Like,
wait, do you do stand up?
I do not do stand up. All my friends, my wife, they all tell me I should do stand up. They're like, "Yeah, you're like one of the funniest people I know." Like, period. Why don't you do stand up? And I'm like, man, I'd be on the camera just like shaking, like, and say, "Women be shopping" like 100 times. That'd be me. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah. You ever notice? Yeah.
Right? I don't know, man.
The other day, there's certain things.
I get a little nervous up there, man. I don't know how I reacted there, but it's something I thought about. I have written a couple of jokes, so you never know how I might turn around. I may just try it one time.
Yeah,
go on stage and just say I tried it.
Yeah, I mean,
telling me I should try it. Then I mean, listen.
Yeah, and this is such a weird time. Like, I don't even know how people are starting now, but I'm assuming there are like Zoom open mics and stuff like that. So it's like literally the lowest stakes imaginable for you to start if you were to do it now. Like,
I'm just gonna get up at the end and drop the mic and have no bottoms on at the end. I'm just gonna and then do the bow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did see one of your IG posts, and you were talking about like the bang that happened with GameStop in the market.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have to invest in that? Did you invest? Were you able to take advantage of that?
I did not, but I was fascinated by it, and I feel like I should have. Yeah, I don't really understand the stock market.
I don't understand it too much as well. I just know that there's a lot of rich white people that are involved in it, so they must be doing something right, and I need to get my money in there somehow, some way. So I'm kind of getting into it right now, but I did not capitalize off it either, man. I said, man, how do I buy video games and play video games and not invest in GameStop?
Yeah, and it does get to it gets to one of those big questions, like what even is money? Like what are we, what are we doing? Like what?
That's just true, man. That is definitely true, man. What is money? That's a good question. Dang, I'm gonna ask my bank that. I'm asking my next time I owe a bill, I'm say, what is money? Like,
wait, what is
So I do have a question. Like, what do you feel like is your biggest accomplishment so far? I feel like you've done so much, but you have a long way to go. Like you got a lot that you could probably propel and do, and I'm sure you're gonna be doing great a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. So what do you feel like is like your biggest accomplishment so far?
That is a great question. Biggest accomplishment? Biggest accomplishment, all I think
most
about.
monumental, you know what I mean? Or your most that you think about, like, oh, I did that.
Yeah, well, I often think about my failures. So accomplishment, I have to retrain my brain a little bit.
Just a little
I
bit,
mean,
man.
I mean, probably. I mean, being able to, I guess, being on the Tonight Show from like, what was that, 5 or 6 months ago or something, was a pretty big accomplishment. Like I said, it was right here in this room in my apartment, but it's a pretty surreal thing to think about.
Yeah, listen, that's not an easy accomplishment, like you just said. That's something surreal. Most people would probably dream about that, you know what I mean? And may still might never get the opportunity. You find yourself like calling some old girlfriends that maybe denied you back then and being like, yeah, watch me on the credits now, and just click on them. That's what I would do.
No, I'm not that type of person.
No?
But no. But yeah, I just think like, maybe they're watching, maybe, but yeah.
You don't stun on these hoes. You know, the stun on these hoes type. I understand. I respect it. I'll do that for you.
Awesome.
Moments to stun on all these hoes. No, I'm just joking, man. So you talked about the question of where do you come from, right? And it being like a kind of like an open-ended question. Have you ever like thought about doing like a 23andMe and finding out kind of where you came from and where your background? I mean, like, are you like part Swahili or something? You know what I mean?
No, someone in my family actually did that, and I found out that it's like a lot of Congolese and then like some Irish or something, and like a bunch of different parts of Africa, and like my family is from like Louisiana and Mississippi, and there's just like, just like a complex swirl of stuff that, it's kind of remarkable. And I'm fascinated. There's like, that is another example of like, there's a lot of unanswered questions with that kind of stuff. And you kind of just have to be like, well, you're here right now. That's all you need to know. That's kind of like the answer. Right. But yeah, that I think that kind of probably ties into my psychology a bit too, of why I'm always seeking answers for all these things. So it's like, it's not as clear cut as it is for some people. Understand. But that's also what makes it also like exciting and I'm just always kind of like, it's probably why I'm always kind of analytical too, just like, oh, okay, this is what this vibe is, and that's what, so am I answering anything? I always get to this point where I don't know if I'm answering people's questions, but
yes, sir, you answered the question definitely, man. So are you planning on being in the front of the camera anytime soon? Like, will we see you in any movies or anything like that you want to do?
Yeah, I think one day I would like to be in movies and stuff. I do have like some projects in the works that may be animated and stuff like that.
Okay.
But you tell me, what kind of thing can you see me in? What kind of
Toy Story 6, man?
You can see me in a Toy Story movie.
Yeah, for sure. I can see you in a Toy Story movie. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I want you to tell me my career trajectory. Like, what do you see? You've gotten to talk to me for about an hour.
I want to see you. I want to see you do like maybe like you and Denzel in like an action movie or something like that.
Really? You can see that?
Man. I could listen. Why not?
I would love that.
That's all that matters, man.
But I want to know why you're seeing that. Like, what do you see?
Because it can happen. You got to speak it into.
What do you think my dynamic will be like with Denzel Washington in a movie?
You would be like the one that's the quiet one, and then in the end just turn on everybody. You know what I mean? And you'd be like the boss at the end. You know that guy, the one cop that's always like, yeah, he might be the crooked one. And in the end, he's the one that everybody answers to. That'd be you. Why not?
All right. That's good to know. That's good to know. That's yeah, so you see me as sort of a serious actor then. That's good.
Yeah, I can see it.
All right. I believe you. I hope to live up to that.
If me and you were acting in a movie, man, what kind of character would you see for both of us? What would you be and I would be? What do you think?
You would be, yeah, you would obviously more active than me. You would be a character who got into some trouble,
Yeah.
and I'm the one reluctantly getting you out of it. Like I'm about to retire, and then it's like every time I try to get out,
He always pulls me back
this
in.
dude.
I like it, man. We might do like a Bad Boys sequel or something like that.
Yeah.
I'll be Mike Lowry. I'm with it. You be Marcus. You know what I mean? We can make something like that work. I like it.
Yeah.
What is your top like TV show right now that you're watching? Whether it's like on Netflix or
Oh,
anything.
man.
What's your top show right now?
What I'm watching right now is I'm watching The Sopranos for the first time, and that is
I haven't seen The Sopranos.
surreal. That is a surreal experience.
Check it out.
Part of me is like amazed. There is something about like these Italian mob movies where it's like you know that these characters to us as Black people, you know that they wouldn't fuck with us. And so it's like this weird thing of like, this guy would kill me. Like this guy,
Yeah.
this guy would not want to be in the same room. Like it's this weird fascination I have watching Sopranos right now, where it's like, but it's also honest. Like there's something good about watching a show about honestly, truly racist people, and then while you're watching it, you're grappling with why you care about this guy.
Right? Why don't you get shot in the face already? Why do I care if he gets shot in the face? He didn't like me anyway.
Yeah. So that's kind of my experience of watching this. Is like, and I'm kind of analyzing the time period that it came out and realizing like, oh, I was like young when this came out, and so what does this mean? And so that's good. It is a very good show.
I'm gonna go check it out.
And there's also, have you ever heard the show called Lodge 49?
I don't think so. Is it on like Netflix or like Amazon?
It's on, it should still be on Hulu. And I never heard of this show when it came out. And kind of, me and my girlfriend discovered it in quarantine. And it starts off a little slow, but it became one of the best shows I've ever seen.
Wow. What's it about?
It's about this guy who is just struggling with the death of his father, and in that, like his father used to own this like pool cleaning company, and so he's kind of a burnout surfer kind of guy, and a number of things lead him to one of these Masonic lodges.
Oh wow, okay.
And he's like the only person who kind of really believes in what this, like the actual philosophy of this lodge. Everyone else is like literally just going there to hang out and drink and stuff. And the way it builds is just pretty amazing. But ultimately it's just like a rare kind of, not totally comedy, not totally drama, but very grounded in showing the way that real people interact with people in a way that you don't. There's a lot of heightened comedy that is like even The Office, like it's heightened comedy. A lot of the characters seem real, but there's still something about it that's a little too much in that comedy space where it's not really real. So anything that kind of is more in that reality space is just good to watch. And I think a part of it is like one of the characters is middle-aged Black man, and it just that on its own is like a pretty rare it's a rare thing to see, and it's a rare thing and so I really enjoyed seeing that too. And there's just certain points in it where I think like near the end of season 1 where it clicked like, oh, I really care about these characters. It just pulled that off really well. And it got canceled after its second season. And it's like, if the creator wrote a book about what happened, if he just wrote the third season as a book, I would definitely pick it up and read it. So
I'm gonna check that out. For Lodge 49, you said, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna definitely check that out. What do you think about The Office? Because you said that it's kind of like heightened as far as, but then goes away from like reality. Do you like The Office? Is that kind of one of the shows you like?
I loved The Office when the American Office when it came out, and I really loved the British one. And now I'm kind of
British
honestly, it started off. the Office that you're thinking of, that everyone thinks of, is
Yeah.
an American remake of a British Office, which you should check out.
Wow, I'm gonna check
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
did not know that. Dang, why am I so like privileged? I think everything starts here. I don't even understand how that is.
Yeah, it's like the sci-fi movies. Like, why do the aliens always land in America?
Right? I'm from New York. I'm
Yeah.
from like the White Plains area, like the 914 area, kind of like where DMX and like everybody like and Jadakiss and those guys are from. And every time I see something, it's always in New York, and I kind of feel like entitled, like, yeah, it's supposed to be, I'm from New York, it's supposed to be there, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's crazy how we view things like that. Like I said, like even thinking about it, like British Office, I didn't even know that, but I gotta check that out. I'm sorry, you were gonna say something else though. You were gonna say British Office, and then you were about to cut in this.
That I'm kind of over the Office, because it's like it got so popular that it's just like I don't know. It's reached that level of popularity where you can't escape it, and so many people love it. I mean, it is good, but it's just like it kind of defined a certain era of a style of comedy where kind of everything was a fake documentary, and I don't know. I'm just kind of over shaky cameras zooming in every 5 seconds, like that kind of thing.
That's funny.
But yeah, like I mean, clearly The Office is great, but something about it where it's like it kind of drains my energy thinking about it at this point. Like I'm kind of done with the Michael Scott angle of things.
Understood. My wife, she does not like The Office at all. She thinks it's like the least funniest show she's ever seen in her life. And I'm just like, man, I don't know why I went wrong. Like I must have made a bad decision here.
Yeah, I do think now. I think I might have tweeted about this. Stanley is one of the most important characters in television history, and I would, I know I kind of write for NBC now. I would love to write a Stanley spinoff. I would love to write a show. You know how CBS has that Young Sheldon show about?
Yep, yeah.
How about a Young Stanley?
Damn.
Don't you think?
That out there. I like that.
Who wouldn't want to watch a Young Stanley?
That's a fact. Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. Dang, we got, like I said, we got to put these things in the universe, because if we don't, then somebody else is gonna take that idea, man. So I like it. We definitely gonna make sure we keep that on there. Young Stanley.
Yeah, Young Stanley. Yeah, let's make a trend. Let's make a trend, America.
Hashtag Young Stanley. Let's do it. I feel like that too, though. When you find a show that's a little bit like it's already caught on, but you were watching it before, like Game of Thrones. I feel like that for me. I've caught on to Game of Thrones, and then everybody started watching Game of Thrones. I'm like, oh, never mind, man. And then it got bad at the end. The last season was almost
the coffee cup.
Oh my god, man! Not even that, but it's like you took all of this to kill a dragon in one episode, and then the White Walkers come out in 2. I'm like, come on, like that's crazy. I thought they were gonna last the whole season. They lasted 2 episodes. Yeah, it was horrible, man. I was so upset. I threw all my DVDs away. I said, get this out of here. It's trash. What's the 7 years of my life for this?
Yeah. When you realize how much time you invested into it. Yeah, it's surreal.
I was so disappointed, man. Oh, man. But then I can't be mad because I got onto The Wire kind of late. Like the show was over and I got onto The Wire. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And maybe I got to go to The Wire after The Sopranos.
You have to see The Wire, man.
Yeah. I want to know what you think of The Sopranos when you end up watching it.
I'm gonna watch it. I just started watching it recently. So
okay.
I'm gonna check it out, man. We'll have conversations about The Sopranos and go back and forth. How far are you into it?
I am on. Apparently, they split the season 6 into season 6A and season 6B, or at least that's how they have it on HBO. So I'm on season 6, and I mean, it's just like a whirlwind of like, I hate this guy, but I care about the situation he's in, maybe, but. Sometimes it's like a fever pitch of like, I don't like, all these people are horrible people. Like,
I gotta check that out, man. I love mafia movies, man. Goodfellas, Sopranos, Godfather, all those movies. Those are all the Casino. I love them all, man. If I can come back reincarnated, I would want to come back as like an Italian mobster, man. That's how I want to come back, man. I would call myself the gorgeous gangster, because why not?
Yeah. You know? Nice. I think that's probably what happened to Robert De Niro, to be honest.
I think so, man. He's the closest thing to white black as you gonna get, man. Him and Larry Bird, they're the closest.
I don't know. At the end of the day, aren't Italians just black people in denial?
Yeah. And like pasta. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, man. You know what I mean? We eat Otis noodles. They eat pasta. I like it, man. It's the same difference.
I got SpaghettiOs. Yeah, sure.
That's it, man. Man, before we get out of here, man, did we miss anything? Did we miss touching on anything? Anything you want to touch on that we didn't talk about?
This is great. Yeah.
I do thank you, man. I thank you for coming out. Before we get out of here, let the people know how they can get in contact with you on social media, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, any social media.
Yeah. Instagram is Tim Barnes Comedy. You can find everything I do at timbarnescomedy.com and on Twitter at timbarnes451. That's the temperature at which jokes burn.
I like that, man.
Yeah.
Dang.
So like Fahrenheit.
I'm gonna steal your stuff. I'm just letting you know right now. This episode's probably not gonna come out for a couple weeks, so I'm just gonna tell my friends I made this stuff, and then you copied me. No, man, that's incredible. I just want to say thank you to all the guests that continue to watch the show and support the No Script podcast. If you haven't already subscribed, definitely feel free to do so. Feel free to hit that bell for notification. And until next time, I thank you guys for coming out. Peace and much blessings to you. Thank you.